From The National, this is Trending Middle East. I'm Yasmin Al-Taji. It's Monday, May 12th. Here are today's headlines. President Donald Trump arrived in the Gulf today. It's his first major trip since the start of his second term in the White House, and it's expected to set the stage for his ties with Gulf states under his administration. He'll visit Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar, but wider regional developments are expected to be on the agenda.
The last time he was president 8 years ago, his first foreign trip was also to Saudi Arabia. But a lot has changed since then. And this trip is actually quite different from the first one as well.
The National's Jihan Abdalla reports.
This trip is expected to focus on economic and financial investments. This president's approach to foreign policy is heavily influenced by economic statecraft, and he's looking to the Gulf as a source of investment in the U.S. And this is something that he is going to bring back to Americans and say, look, these are billions of dollars that are now going to be invested in the U.S. Thanks to me.
Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the trip will focus on strengthening ties and will build on foundations laid during his previous administration. This trip is expected to give Trump an opportunity to present a friendly face to regional allies, unlike the more antagonistic approach he's taken towards the EU, Ukraine, and others.
But aside from the economic deals, as well as a potential arms deal with Saudi Arabia, there's also expected a GCC meeting where members are expected to talk about Syria, the nuclear negotiations with Iran, and the Houthis. And they're mostly going to want to talk about Gaza.
Gulf countries have been playing increasingly important roles on global issues as mediators between Ukraine and Russia, Iran and the US, or working towards ceasefire in Gaza.
The main takeaway, I think, from this trip is that the Trump administration sees the Gulf region as trusted allies to the United States. Obviously, this is a departure from previous administration that saw partnership in Europe and other Western nations.
Trump said he would make a, quote, very, very big announcement before his trip without specifying the subject. Flights between the UAE and Pakistan resumed over the weekend. That was after Pakistani authorities reopened its airspace on Saturday following a ceasefire agreement with India. It brought days of deadly cross-border hostilities to a halt.
It was agreed between them that both sides would stop all firing.
But the situation is still tentative. India and Pakistan traded accusations of ceasefire breaches early on Sunday, just hours after it was announced. The return of flights follows a turbulent week of missiles and drone attacks exchanged between the nuclear-armed neighbors. That led to the death of 60 people, suspension of air travel across large parts of both countries, and forced thousands from their homes along the border, including in divided Kashmir. India had announced the closure of 32 airports in northern and western parts of the country and suspended 25 air route segments until May 15th, as previously reported by The National. Following the ceasefire, Pakistan's Civil Aviation Authority announced the reopening of all airports for regular operations. There has been a sharp increase in settler violence across the West Bank since the October 7, 2023 attacks on Israel by Hamas. Global attention is elsewhere, and perpetrators, many of them armed, feel emboldened.
Palestinians in the region have long faced violence from Israeli settlers, but the phenomenon became a lot worse after October 7 and the Gaza war.
The National's Thomas Helm reports.
A few factors contributed to this deterioration. One was that National Security Itamar Ben-Gvir gave loosened restrictions on which Israelis could receive gun licenses. There was a general atmosphere of incitement against Palestinians amid all the anger after the October 7 attacks. And there was also a great deal of distraction internationally. The world was focusing on what was happening in Gaza and the geopolitics around it.
Traditional residential settlements tend to be more densely populated enclaves, close to the border with sovereign Israel. But farming outposts can extend Israeli presence over vast tracts of land through grazing, fencing, and planting crops with very little manpower. They get a willing workforce by advertising themselves as places to host teenage school dropouts and delinquents, widely called the Hilltop Youth.
For the article, I spoke to victims of these attacks, people who had their homes destroyed, their flocks scared away, and these people had families and young children. But I also spoke to a very small number of Israeli Jewish activists who engage in something called protective presence, which is a form of activism where these Israelis with their preferential legal status go and live with the communities. And if an attack happens, the Israeli activists make their presence known, often get in the way of these attacks. And the theory that works is that if Israelis are being attacked alongside the Palestinians, Israeli civilian authorities, so the police and the army as well, are far more likely to get involved and prevent the attacks.
That's all for this morning's headlines. You can get these stories and follow live updates at our site. Yasmin Al-Taji, The National.